I'll try and.
Yeah, of course. Well, as long as we can give it all to Zoom.
So they don't hear snoring and stuff.
I mean. What are you gonna put back?
No, I know. I'll wait. I think it'll be interesting. Okay, awesome. And then, where is it? Oh, yes. Presentation. That.
Anytime.
I'm gonna do this. Okay. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Hey everyone, thanks for having me down here. It's a big pleasure. It's a pleasure to be down here so far away from my home. It feels like I'm in another country. I'm 2.5 hours north. I'm in Boynton Beach, but Zane and his dad are even further away. And they come here every week, so I cannot complain about anything. That's the last of my complaints. But thank you, Uli, for inviting me to speak here. I spoke a few weeks ago in West Palm at the Botanical Garden. I was invited there to speak the same talk. And so I've had some time to think about what I say and what I go into. And at a certain point near the end, we'll open up for questions. And how much time do I have? That's so good. That's great.
I can place up more that start away.
By Friday. Amazing.
Around 45 minutes, 15.
I think they're missing a line of things. So I'm gonna start now. All right, let's see how this goes. Sounds better. That's my second introduction in case anyone wanted another one. That's in Amazon. That's the highway between Iquitos and Nauta. Maybe it's like 100 kilometers or so. When I first moved down there in 2012, I was living about a 10-minute walk from that road. That's me, you can tell. That's me with a rack. What is that? Goldfinger bananas in Lake Worth at a garden that we used to run. That was a part of the school district of Palm Beach County, which is a bureaucratic nightmare, but we made it through and I'm not there. So that's how that goes. But before I start talking about joyful things, we're gonna go into a little history of like how I got to this point. So this is me on the upswing from a nerve disease that was imparted to me from a tetanus shot in 2007. That's my old work boss, and he was coming to visit me. But you can see the arm very, very thin, and also the wrist cocked like that. I couldn't lift my hands, and this was me getting better. I could still, at this point, I could speak. But it was pretty devastating. It's called Guillain-Barré. It's a demyelinating nerve disease that ascends from the feet all the way to the top of the head. Maybe some of you have heard of it. But yeah, since then, and that point, I was 48 days in the hospital, and my insurance stopped covering me. That's always why I went home to learn how to walk in the house. So it was like an American nightmare in every way of the word. And if it wasn't for my dear friends and my family and the people close to me, I would not be here standing before you today. And so that experience is what catapulted me into wanting to learn more about the other side of healing and what it really means to take care of people. The best part about being in the hospital was being taken care of by nurses who felt like my mothers times 1,000, right? Just, really taking care of me. And I realized in that compassion that they deliver, that's where the medicine is. And the doctor coming in, looking at the clipboard, without ever looking to see the patient because they have to go to 10 more rooms, like that thing is broken, And so I think we all can agree with that. And so that really catapulted me and took a varied history of movement. That's me in about to enter something called the spinoflex. That was the first time standing vertical in 45 days or so. And so the blood like moving through my legs, I will never forget that feeling for the rest of my life. It's a very tragic disease, and most people don't get to the point that I'm at now. Hence my inspiration and motivation on the daily. I still have nerve pain, neuropathy, like a diabetic does, from the ankle down to the foot, and that's the same place where the disease starts. So it ascends from there and then it descends from there. But I consider that a gift to remember where I came from and to stay humble, because sometimes we can get really big in the head, And so that's me learning how to walk again in the Cornell rehab. And that was something I really entertained for a long time doing, is becoming a rehab therapist, for how much they helped me. And in a way, I have become that without the titles. And so then 5 years later or so, I start getting into cooking. I started learning how to make my own food, and it became this huge journey of just questioning all that I had been doing prior at 19 years old. And I ended up moving up to Orlando and living with a dear friend who was the crazy friend who was filtering his rainwater through a carbon filter and growing carrots and tomatoes on the side of his house. And so we were in a giant group of skateboarders, and some of those skateboarders got into gardening. And so that was like a portal that brought me to where I am today. And so that was my first raised bed garden in Orlando. This is maybe 2008, 2009. And from there, I had the bug, as I know all of us have in this room. And so I started with that little scallion patch in the back left corner, because I worked at a restaurant, and they're like, you could plant a scallion ends. And I was like, really? Are you serious? You could just do that? They're like, yeah. So I started pocketing all the scallion buds, you know? And I bring it home, I smell like onions everywhere. And I started making that scallion garden, and then shortly thereafter, I did the whole rest. And then I kept going, and I couldn't control it, you know? And so that is my mother's house. God bless her for letting me do this. She really didn't let me. She's like, Ralph, are you sure you're not gonna get tall? I'm like, no, nothing's gonna get tall. And so that was that. And later, it got very, very tall. That's her. That's her in the corner sun tanning. She's like, I don't have my son. I need my son. Very Italian, you know. So yeah, it looks like that to a degree. I've toned it down a lot. Took a lot of the Mexican sunflowers out. That's me doing what I'm doing now, which always feels so meta to talk about myself giving a presentation. But I started doing this kind of work in Orlando. I studied herbalism there formerly at a school called Florida School of Holistic Living, and they offer programs to this day. And shortly thereafter, in the discovery process, I was like, where is the juiciest healing spaces? You know, I wanted to know where they really were still doing that let's say the rustic work, you know, the folk herbalism. And then 2012, I boarded an airplane and found myself on the way from Lima to Iquitos. That's the Amazon River from the airplane, going over it. And that's me looking about 50 pounds lighter underneath the whole tangle of vines. I shoot a lot of film, so a lot of the presentation will be on some 35mm, if not other things. And so in this place, I was in an apprenticeship underneath a folk healer. And he was actually from Russia, believe it or not, this first gentleman I met. And in that position, I was working with volunteers coming and learning how to garden in the jungle, which is a whole other ballgame. Because some people think it's just like gardening anywhere else, which is just like gardening in Florida. When people come from the north, I'm like, I don't know how to do anything here. But it's magnifying that times 100 down there. It's way more intense. So I was teaching people how to grow things, and I was studying the plants and the medicines of the Amazon with that gentleman. And through that gentleman, I ended up meeting Don Luis Pinedo, in all his glory, with his mapacho tobacco in his left hand. He is a folk healer of the Witoto people. He's been studying medicinal plants since he's 11 or 12 years old. He's now 56 and a great grandfather, if you can believe that. He is the eldest of 16 children, and he has 10 of his own. And people from all over the world visit him and have been visiting him for decades. And so I found myself going to his land. He has about 80 acres in the Iquitos area off the Rio Ataya River. And I started working with him pretty intensively in 2013. And I've been going there every year since then. And so when I'm down there, I'm particularly doing something called dieta. I didn't get into this in my last talk, but I'll go into it a little more now because I feel like a different energy with y'all. Dieta means to diet, right? But in the Peruvian jungle, if you talk to anyone on the street about dieta, they know that you're talking about fasting with plants. And so the way that they study herbs is by fasting with the plant, usually in isolation. And so kind of similar, the cultural parable that we have, or the story we have, is Christ eating nothing for 40 days, you know, praying. It's very similar to that. And so they'll take a medicine plant that's either prescribed to them by someone like him who knows them, or has come to them in a dream, or some kind of synchronicity, or they have a friend who said, that plant's really good for this. They'll go off alone for anywhere from 3 days, 8 days, weeks, or months, and they'll sit alone with that plant. Someone else will cook them their food, bring them their food, and they can't do anything else. They're allowed to be in the jungle and have no ice, no contact, no salt, no sugar, no oil, no sex, no alcohol, and no distractions. And so in that place of doing a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of something else happens, yeah? And so I've practiced that tradition for the past 10 years, and I can tell you, it is very profound what can happen in those places. And so he is a master, literally, in that way of working with the plants through fasting. And so I could talk about for about 8 hours straight, and I'm gonna slow it down from that point.
Does the plant, is it consumed?
Yeah, the plants consume. The plants consume. Yeah, in the beginning of your fasting, you're eating still, but you're eating very minimally. And the idea is to give you just enough food so you survive. And so the idea is that the plant comes in, and your food intake goes down a little bit. And the way that I've come to recognize it, I was actually talking to my wife about this yesterday, it's almost like the plants, if we can zoom out a little bit from our worldview, the plants recognize the sacrifice that we make to kind of put our health on the line physically, and they reward us in another way. And so it's kind of like this give and take that happens. And it becomes more and more obvious as one continues on its path how that really works. Nature is very much alive and well and listening to us, yeah? And so they know that, and they have maintained that connection through all the cataclysm of the last few hundred years that all these cultures have gone through. I look like a Tartarian giant next to him. But that is a dear friend of mine, and I take groups down there now. I've been organizing groups the last few years. We just had our last one in January. That's me again, looking very tall. And that's him with his shotgun. So one thing I want to talk about in this way of like the folk healing tradition of Iquitos and this whole time in Florida is that the healer, the role of being a healer, which in the truest way, you don't get like, oh, you don't wake up and be like, I'm gonna do this. You kind of get selected by the people, yeah? And it's through his firstborn child getting very sick, he's like, I need to learn how to help my family. And so that is what was the impetus to learn. And he tells me to this day, and never in his wildest dreams did he think that people from America, Europe, Asia, and so on and so forth.
We can't hear anything.
Unmute me, there you go. Now can you hear me, Dave?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is Don Luis Pineda once again, and what I was getting at is that these people, when they're in these positions of being a healer, let's call them that, they're very well-rounded. Why? Because they have a family to take care of. So every other night, he's going out to hunt to feed his kids, to feed his grandkids, and so on. They know all the plants, not because they went to school to study them, but because they live in the Amazon rainforest, and that even the children, I've been taught by 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds every time I go there. They're always showing me stuff. So it's a part of it's a way of their life, and so I tell them sometimes that we have clubs and we sell all their weed trees. Like there's plants that sometimes, the strawberry cotton fruit, cotton candyberry, that's a weed in Iquitos that grows. Mutingia calibura, right? It grows in the sidewalk cracks of Iquitos. And I tell them sometimes they get $60 for a 3 gallon. And he is mind blown. So it's just a different way of life. Let's keep going. Let's see. There you go. That's his beautiful wife, Doña Sarai, next to angel trumpet or Brumancia, which is a plant that's come to be feared in the Western culture for the right reason, because there's all these stories of kids eating it and one time an experience and they get really messed up. It's not something I've been doing, but there they know how to use it because it's their ancestral plant. They take the leaves and they'll make a poultice externally. If anyone has this plant, it's very beautiful to try. An external application, no drinking, just the leaf crushed until the water comes out. And I watched and witnessed an 80-year-old woman in the Andes who had arthritis in her knees, and she had the leaves on her knees. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, it takes the pain away. I was like, no way. So I tried it, and she's like, you can take the leaf, put it on you, just lay down and kind of just relax. And if you can feel the pain just being lifted off of your body, it's pretty wild. Angel trumpet. Yeah, like there's a lot of like romances. Yeah, romances. But actually, all of the cousins also have a similar aspect. So one of our herbal teachers in North Carolina makes a tincture with alcohol like these of the seeds of the moonflower, the Datura, which is the cousin of romancia. So all those plants have compounds that work with pain. It's just about learning how to use them because the line goes, every plant is medicine, it's about knowing what the dosage is. Because this plant can kill you and so can the other ones, right? But it's just like, you have to really understand what you're getting into. So I always tell everyone, and I'll say this again, I am not a doctor, 1, 2, don't do anything I'm telling you to do unless I'm with them. Or someone else very experienced is. This is their land of 80 acres. They build their house very similar to the Seminole do down here with the thatch roofs and the screened in porches all around. So it's like mosquito vita, they call it, just goes all the way around. So the air passes through. So even on the hottest days, it's still bearable without air conditioning. And when I come back home from being there for months, I cannot be in air conditioning. I don't know if anyone's experienced that living in the islands and so on. It is unbearable to me. And my family thinks I'm crazy that 78 is burning my skin. That's the type of isolation pots that we stay in when we're doing the dieta process on the left. And that's one of his cows there on the right. Very beautiful land. That's him and his family on the right. And his main apprentice is on the left, the first gentleman, Laszlo Bartha, who is from Hungary. And his story is really fascinating. He came to Iquitos searching for healing, similar to how I was. He didn't know 3 words of Spanish in a Spanish-speaking place. And he met Luis, and he told me, he said he saw all the people leaving there really thin, and he knew that they were doing the right thing. He's like, I saw him suffering, and I knew that's where I needed to go. And so he ended up living there for 8 years straight, studying his path. And at one point, he had been called by what, I don't know, but to do a diet of 45 days with no food and just water. And what tree was he drinking? They call it ceiba in the islands. Lupuna is what they call it in Peru. It's the tallest tree in that area of the Amazon. And so he was drinking a little tea of that and water and nothing else. And so he did 5 days more than Christ. That's pretty strong, you know, and lived to tell about it. That's Lucho's water, and ironically, I always get the San Luis water bottle because it's like, feels funny to me. Right, but I empty the mineral water and I fill it with his spring water. And his name's Luis, so it's super funny. I'm like, Luis, look, San Luis. That means, for those that are speaking Spanish, that's Saint Luis. So that's their natural spring behind the bottle. And there's a bubbling, they call it an ojo de agua, right? Like the eye of water that just appears in the sand. And he dug in front of that years ago, and the water naturally just fills this little cavern. And I always tell him, the most amazing part about being in that place is this water. I bring it home if I can, and I drink little sips and put it in my fridge. It's the most amazing water. This is an example of what tree. Does anyone know besides name? Can you answer this? No, that's that Muntingia. That's the strawberry fruit tree. No, strawberry. The strawberry cotton candy berry. Yeah, so it grows, you can see it growing in a construction site and growing up against the side of the wall. And no one eats this there. It's just for birds and bats and 3-year-olds. So there it is. That sounds so appropriate. That's the cotton candy berry growing out of a wall. Every time I see that, the pictures just start laughing. Now I'm like, what are you looking at? You know? I'm like, in my country, we sell those as vegan. They always laugh at me. And that's that one. One man's weeds is another man's rare fruit tree. Yeah, go ahead. It's delicious. The yellow one, if you tried it, way better. Bigger. Really? Amazing. They use it for fishing.
I said we're from Peru.
Really? What part?
Okay.
Okay, but your dad's in the jungle.
Yeah, my dad lives there.
What part of the
He
jungle?
doesn't like the city. Pucallpa.
Oh, okay, that's the high
My
jungle.
uncle lives in Iquitos.
Oh my God, amazing.
Also, yeah.
Amazing. So the first section of plants that we'll get into is like more on the edible fruiting kinds that we're more familiar with. I'm sure we can recognize that this is a pineapple. If anyone isn't familiar, pineapple originates from South America. Exactly where, I don't think anyone would ever know. But they're actually, I read this in a book from Ernest Gosch, who's the founder of Syntropic Agriculture out of Brazil. And he was saying that bromeliads, right, the family of plants that pineapples pertain to, originated in the trees, right, as epiphytic plants, like an orchid. Because in Spanish, in the jungle, they call these orquídeas. They're actually not orchids, they're bromeliads, but they call them, you see what I'm saying? And so I'm like, oh, and so he told me in that book, when the tree finally dies and it has those pineapple-like orchid plants in the tree rots, and then the pineapple eats that and is exposed to sun from the tree falling. You'll notice that pineapples have this affinity towards shade at some points in its life. and some at others. And that could be, it seems like, why. And so they are masters of pineapple over there. And Lucho's mother, who's got to be in her 80s, has 8 or 9 varieties, all of which are very, very different. That's kind of fading out with the next generations. And I'm always down there trying to tell their grandkids that they have to plant all these pineapples and put labels on them. And you'll see the varieties. I know that there is a black one coming out of Puerto Rico, you're saying, right, Zane? Yeah. So there's a Nequitos black they call Negra. And the right one is Bolon, which is like ball shaped. Like that. And so, yeah, those are 2 different ones. Very, very.
Top cut off, or is it not up top?
No, it's cut off. Yeah, it's cut off. And so that's another one there. That's Ojon. And then I have a little text at the top for those who can see. In this, one of the years I was down there, I think it was 2021, between an airplane ride, a bus, and a taxi, I met 3 separate people that had worked with clearing kidney stones from pineapples. And so in my research beyond that, it seems like it was the proteolytic enzyme, which people take to help digestion and all those other kinds of things, reduce excessive protein buildup, fibroids, and so on, with bromelain, which comes from pineapples. And so they have like the source down, and they make a tea either from all the skins, or they just eat pineapples without anything else, which is a very easy thing to do because they taste delicious.
Are these pineapples you can just find like markets?
So the market one, similar to what's happening in the rest of the world, the market one is 1 kind, if not 2, and they call them, you know what they call it? I'm like, I was in the market, like in Nigeria, I'm like, oh, what pineapple is this? They're like, golden. I'm like, golden? I'm like, oh. They're selling golden, like the golden one, you know, like dole. And the other one, I think they might even say like dole. I'm like, no. So I'm like trying to really inspire them, like bring the other ones to the market. Because they have one I don't have a picture of. I got into the pineapple thing because Lucho told me one night, really late, he goes, my mom used to grow this pineapple called lagarto, which means alligator, no? Lagarto, like lizard. And they called it that because it got so big that it would fall over from its own weight and it looked like a reptile laying down. And he's like, but we lost it, it's extinct. And I was like, no. And I was like, I'm gonna find it. So I asked his mom, I was like, you know, there used to be this pineapple. She's like, you're over there. And he's not a planter, but she is. So I'm trying to get them to get these genetics still planted out. And that's me collecting those genetics. If you zoomed in, you would see there's a B, there's an N, all these have like writing on them, and those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are 7 kinds. I collected that year.
There.
Iquitos, yeah.
Did you just plant them?
And I planted them at Lucho's house to keep them going. Because I'm taking them from his mom's house, it's like an hour away. And I'm like, you have to remember to do this. And like I'm trying to be like, get it going, man, you know? Inspiring them to get it going. That's the market pineapple Ojon. And you can see that they don't throw the skins out. They sell the skins on the side to make
Like tea.
there's a drink, what's it called? No, that's another country, but yes. The purple corn, chicha morada, use the purple corn.
Not the pineapple.
Pineapple to sweeten it, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, purple corn drink.
Yes.
So moving into banana, these are Lucho's grandkids, and one is his daughter, oddly enough. They're holding a banana leaf for like an umbrella, which is very, very useful. And moving into banana, they have an amazing variety of bananas down there. Pildorita is on the left, and manzano, which means apple, right? Do you know how confused I was in 2012 going to Peru, and I'd be like, what is this? They'd be like, in Spanish, they'd say manzano, and I'd be like, that means apple in my brain. And I was like, this is a banana. They're like, no, it's apple. I'm like, can anyone help me? You know? And I realized years later, the reason why they call it apple banana is because it has a sub-acid flavor. That's what it is. It took me a long time. I was eating it, but you know, so that's what that is. Those are all. Oh, of course. I have a plant. So, Platanista Isla y Polena. It's the same plant here. Yeah, super good. They're tough. They're tough.
There are others that are awesome.
Yeah.
Same, I guess.
This is a cousin, it seems to me, of Orinoco, or what they call burro banana here, because it had that same triangular shape. And when I cooked it, I opened it and it was white flesh. And so Lucho calls this sapuche, this type of plantain hybrid. And he uses this for diabetics because it has a lot less starch. It's a very different flavor. It almost felt like I was eating like marshmallowy banana ice. Very interesting. What's that was there?
Bring it here.
Bring it here.
Yeah. Definitely.
You already had.
So, this is so moving moving from the food to the medicine, this was shown to me years ago, and I found this little diagram to illustrate it. But if you were cut down your banana after fruits, you see that the next day there's so much liquid coming out of it. And so down there, I just so happened to me when I was making this presentation 3 weeks ago, I messaged one of my friends because he was having a time, so I was talking to him back and forth. And I remembered his dad is the one that showed it to me. So I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, do you ask your dad what banana he used specifically and why he would cut it and save the water?" So like, what they do is they cut it just like the diagram. They cut the banana and they scoop out with the machete the middle of the plant that's still in the ground. And the next morning, it's filled with water and they collect it in a cup and drink it. And they use it for lung ailments and all this other kind of stuff. And his son told me, he goes, "When you learned that, it was for me. He was dying from an infection as a baby, and that he had cut that banana to give it to his son Jefferson, and it healed him of a stomach infection, which he was like at the end of his life with." So then I started researching, and there's a lot of PubMed studies with the banana sap and the water that comes from this that has so many properties. I don't know if I linked any of them. Yeah, there's a little bit of it cuts off with the screen at the top, but yeah, it's doing great. He's crushing it, yeah. So the white latexy sap, you ever seen it when you cut the banana by accident? It bleeds. Every shirt but this one. Oh, thank you. Every shirt but this one, it's stained to the teeth with banana sap. And I get made fun of all the time at my house. But that sap is extremely medicinal. And at one point, I slashed my hand pretty good with a machete about 3 years ago. And I was holding the skin together with my hand like this. And I walked to Lucho's house and I'm like, "Hey Lucho, I'm kind of panicked, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, I'm sure I'm gonna lose this thumb." It was a good thumb, and it lasted 36 years. And so he's like, "Oh, in the jungle back before Band-Aids, we would just use the banana sap to seal it." I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't have banana sap on me." You know, and so I'm gonna talk about this plant a little bit, but the plant I used on it to heal that is right on that table called copaiba. So the juice from the trunk used for infections, respiratory complaints, what I talked about. And then this is very cool. I'm sure some of us, if not all, are familiar with the plant, more so in the north, called comfrey, right? So comfrey is super famous and used to have the name knit bone because it would heal broken bones so quickly. And I personal anecdotal stories of other friends have used it on things that were broken and it heals the actual bone together, which is ridiculous. Apparently, that's due to this compound called allantoin. I don't know how to pronounce that. That same compound in banana leaves. And so because of this, I learned this from an herbalist in Alabama named Daryl Patton. Very good name to look up. He has a lot of videos. Daryl Patton. And so because of him, I took Orinoco leaves, dried them, and infused them in oil, and I make those into salves. And the things it can do for the skin are incredible. So that's a cool thing to know, especially about having so many banana leaves down here. That's my friend. That's my friend Davicho, who showed me how to cut the banana and collect that juice and to keep those with banana racks on his head. I didn't see them using the leaf for medicine. That's something more I found out in the States. But they use the sap, the juice that collects the sap. I used the whole thing and just let it turn completely brown inside, dry it. So it takes a long time to dry because it's so watery. But once it does, it's crinkly. It almost has paper. Who weaves banana leaves? You know. Do you weave with them fresh or brown? Dry, amazing. So it takes a while, right, to dry them.
So when they
Not
dry
really?
the tree on the tree,
No.
You separate the laser, right?
Quickly, okay, yeah, amazing.
Like with the sun here.
Yeah,
I don't know, they know.
amazing. That's my dear friend Chip Bentley. I hope he gives me permission for sharing him across the world right now. To the Zoomers, that's him holding a Saba banana. If you can see him right there. And that's his Saba plants planted illegally in front of his house, on his neighbor's side of the fence. But he got a lot of fruit out of that before his neighbors just took him out. They're really big, but they produce so well. It's kind of like it's like as well as Orinoco does, just without care. You know, he never did anything to him. This is a really amazing little discovery I made some years back, and I finally found the paragraphs about it. You want me to read this? I can read it out loud if you want.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip to the section, but basically it talks about this area of Sanibel Island, in Pine Island. So the Pine Island site complex where there was a bunch of indigenous action years, so we're talking a long time ago, is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Radiocarbon dating of materials from Pineland show cultural periods from AD 50 to AD 1750. The waterlogged deposits in which most plant materials were found were early in the series, from the 1st through the 3rd centuries AD. Fragments were recovered of fleshy fruits as well as species of wetland, woodland, and hammock taxa. Among these materials were nearly 3,000 seeds of various species. Of those, only 8 were of carica, which is papaya, were found among the manure-covered seeds, yet their presence and form answers much. In size, texture of seed coat, and overall morphology, these seeds were somewhat different from papaya seed from elsewhere, suggesting that there had been some selection by the Pine Island residents. So this is showing that papaya has been cultivated here in Florida for a long time, of which many people, and then especially the native plant people who are very adamant about being native plant people, don't plant papaya, and they should be. Obviously, there's been a bunch of selection. That's a papaya tree in the Amazon that definitely needs some fertilizer. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And the medicine of papaya is huge, which I'm sure I may have a page on that. No, I don't. So let's see off the top. Papaya leaf was shown to me by a neighbor of mine in Boynton. She knocked on my door one day and she said, "Hey Ralph, can I get some papaya leaves?" I'm like, "Yeah, for what?" I just knew they're super bitter. I'm like, "What are you gonna do with papaya leaves?" And she's like, "My friend is a missionary and he got dengue, which is similar to malaria, a very intense mosquito-borne disease that like ravages you through fever and can kill you." She blended papaya leaves in a blender with water, and she strained it, and he just drank that for days. And it cleanses all of it out of your blood. I have not personally done that, but from what she told me, he got better. So that's pretty amazing. The other thing I know off the top from papaya is that if you're a green papaya and you see that milky latex coming down, some people are really allergic to that. If you ever have fallen skin, sometimes the skin gets itchy, and it's because it's eating at your skin because it's a protein. How to explain this? It has exactly. It has like the enzymes in the pain is what it's called, and they use it to tenderize meat. And us being fleshy beings, exactly, it's tenderizing. So like, don't tenderize yourself too much because you might end up como asadito, you know. Okay. Anyway, I'm sure we all recognize this. This is a basil, of which I have on that table over there. This basil is more so wild in the Amazon. And in my research for this presentation, I found out it's native to South Florida, which is mind-blowing. This is what I'm talking about. There's so much crossover, and to me, it points to the fact that peoples were trading things a lot. Whether that was through birds or whatever else, I don't know. There's been a lot of documentation. They found quinoa in deposits in Canada. Quinoa doesn't grow in Canada, and this is very old. So, in my opinion, the peoples were moving through waterways drastic distances a long, long time ago. Whether that was for this basil or not, I don't know. But they call it albahaca, which means basil, and there's varieties of that. But this one they particularly use in baths. So they'll make a cold water infusion with a variety of plants. One of them is this. And anything deeply aromatic is it. You smell a plant, you feel something, you know, you change your mood a little bit. And so when you bathe in that water enters you and brings out different qualities to the spirit of the person. And so this plant is really used for that. They also use it for heart medicine as an infusion. A conviction. It's a, you believe it. Say it again for the recording. Okay, so yeah.
Just let me know.
Hey Dave, oh wait a minute. If I see this on TikTok. Did you put bagels in your eye? You're done, you know? Oh my God. I'm definitely coming back. You guys are great. The wine really helps, you know?
We're the best love it,
Oh, for sure. You're the best love. You're the best love this far away.
Best love.
Yeah, they're right there, little baby. So I think those that were listening to the recording, I'm not sure, but I'll explain it again. The carnus en el ojo, if you translate that, you'll be freaked out. Essentially, it's when like the flesh grows over the eye. And so Don Luis taught me that you put one of these basil seeds in the corner of your eye closest to your nose before you go to bed when you're laying down, and the rapid eye movement will actually help eradicate that flesh overgrowth on the eye. Don't ask me if I've done this. I have not. This is just what I've heard. Let's see. That's essentially the essence. Let's see. Okay, this I have two of, or one, yeah, two, three. This tree is the most eaten fruit by weight in Iquitos, which says a lot. There's a lot of people there. Iquitos is the largest waterlogged city in the world, just so that people understand that. 150 tons per month. I don't know if we can fathom how much fruit that actually is. But this fruit, if I can zoom in, oh, actually, I have another photo of it. They turn it into a sweet beverage called agujina, which is absolutely amazing. And I drink it in my body weight when I'm down there, or in ice cream, or simply eat out of hand, which can go sweet or savory. The palms are either male or female, and they get massive. The males, they'll cut down and purposely wound to then have them fall and have a grub worm in that palm, which they sell alive or grilled. And that grub worm is about this, 3 inches big. And yeah, they grill them on sticks and they cook them, and it's like eating a spoonful of coconut oil. It is wild. And when you eat that, your brain's like it feels like Mario Brothers, you know? It's like, feels amazing. So I have only seen flowering palms, believe it or not, in Boynton Beach. And so I was told by someone that the one in, I think it was either at Fruit and Spice Park, or if it was at Fairchild, it was a 50 years it took for it to flower. In Boynton, it took 20. And his proposal to me was because of the fact that we're not in such limestone soil up there. We have that advantage. More.
Is that soil that goes by the water?
No, that's not safe.
Have you harvested one in Boynton?
No, but so the thing is with that gentleman's trees, he has males flowering and he has females flowering, but not at the same time. And he's pulling his hair out, you know, trying to figure it. So I'm like, we gotta collect some pollen and do a little dance up here, you know?
Let me just say that,
Tell me.
Richard Hawkins planted one, it's in the, I think, by the pond over here.
Is that what you said? Did they love water? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can live
It's right in.
I can see them
the water.
in water this deep. They live straight up in water or not. I was told by Lucho that Luis says he doesn't like when they get planted in water because he has fish ponds and it lifts the earth up. So they don't, but they grow in giant swamps, which is great for Florida. And this should be everywhere all around, in my opinion. This is a gentleman climbing it. That was probably when he was at 40 feet high. Halfway up about, and I was mind blown, and so was the rest of the community because they've never seen anyone do this. This is like a rare skill that's kind of fading because
Barefoot?
he. Let's see if hopefully I have this next photo. I don't. It is not spiny, but the most ferocious of ants that you'd never want to know by name nor function destroy you as you go up there. But he's climbing these leaves at the height of it are about this wide, and he's like climbing the dead leaves, and I'm like, oh my god, because it takes one dead leaf that's still unconnected for him to go to the other world. What he harvested from these film photos was this. So that's the harvest. And that's all coming down. They come down really hard. I don't have a lot of experience with salak. This reminds me of what salak looks like. It looks like it, right? Like, oh no. Not my day for this image. I think they gotta come here. Time to get a bus ride or something, you know, like. I knew the Zoom was a thing. I really want them to be here. Let's see. Or maybe just tell them to call me and like, well, no, seriously, I'll open my phone up and I'll just let it go. Let's see.
It's the Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah. Sorry, dude.
That's okay.
So they have the Mauritian.
Find out.
It'll get more interesting, I promise. It'll get more wild. I'm building Steve.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting story. George.
There you go. Okay, I'm back. Alright, so from here, they'll pile this up in postales, giant sacks, and they'll sell them in the market. Very cheap. It's a very inexpensive fruit down there. But it takes about 5-6 days for those hard fruits. They can fall from that high and nothing happens to them. But in a few days, they get soft on their own, or people geniusly will expedite that by making lukewarm water and setting them in that. And in about 3 or 4 hours, they get soft. And how they do that is just like this. So that's a soft one on the left. And they use their teeth, like the top teeth, and just go like this, and they work the scales off, which have no flavor really. It just feels like you're eating a steak. And then the flesh is just that like millimeter of meat. You can see my buck teeth marks on that. This tastes almost like cheese, savory on its own. But the avenue for it to go into sweet is very amazing, with which they make ice cream and drinks and so on. It's very fatty. It's like eating avocado.
So you just eat that flesh, what about
Yeah.
the seed inside?
No, it's thrown to plant out. So that in the market, that's ready to go paste on the left. And then they would make that into the drinks, the ice cream, and that's a foam on the right.
They call it too.
True.
Right.
So this one is one I've seen in Florida fruiting in Botanical. Not a lot of fruit that I needed some food. This is in Iquitos, that group on the left. This is called picuayo, which is a weird word. In Colombia, they call it chonta, so chonta duro. You can see it sold in the supermarkets. They'll sell these fruits on the left, either they're red or yellow or green, in a jar already cooked. And it's got like, what did I put in here? The flavor is meeting tomato soup, hominy, which is nixtamalized corn, and sweet potato. It's a very interesting fruit, and I love them a lot. And I found this quote, and you can see evidence that they live forever. These palms go really high, and the spikes on these palms will make you reconsider having skin. They are like this long all around the palm, but there are thornless varieties. When you bleed out, everything's better, you know. So they can ferment it into a beer, which I've had, and they can also ferment it to make a masa, so bake. And
Is that the same thing that you made in Costa Rica,
Yes.
powder and they cook them?
yeah, they have it too.
Here, right?
I don't think so.
The peach palm, remember that you brought it once? You had it at the table.
Yeah, the Caribbean thing.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you have.
I think you have one here. You do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Penny Baya.
Kahibai, that's the other name. So that, yeah, that's the other name.
In the Caribbean, there's like a specific tree that they plant next to them in the woods, because that way you can plant the other tree,
Ah,
and it grows like really tall.
Totally. That's smart. That's very genius. I love that. What they told me, you wanna hear the Amazon trick? I haven't tried this, but Lucho swears to me this works. They take the seed of a spiny peach palm and they put it in a cup with very thick amount of achiote or anato, the anato fruit. They take the seed, they make a paste, and they put the thorny peach palm seed in the paste water of anato for like a week. And then they plant it. He goes, the paste takes the spines off of the genetics. I'm like, okay, that's next level, man. And I was like, maybe good. I haven't tried this, but I'm about to. Give me a few years, you know. So you can see the oil content of this is incredible. That blurry picture on the right, I was so happy that my phone was shaking, but you can see the glistening oil on top of the pot on the left, and on the right you can see it at the fruit, even if it's blurry. This is sache, which I have no plants of left. I don't see enough. Sache inchi means wild peanut, sometimes translated as jungle peanut. And yeah, it's a vine that grows really prolifically. That's this new growth that was from a plant I had in Florida. And I think that's something that we should really have people growing. And it grew from seeds that someone sent to me dried, so it does have some shelf life in it. And that's something I want to explore more. I have about 5 plants growing on the fence right now, so we'll see how they do. That is my friend Nirol, next to a canasta of yucca cuttings of cassava. I'm sure most of us are familiar with that plant. That is probably my most favorite plant I've ever in the vegetable arena. It's the 6th most produced crop in the world, like after things like wheat, rice, corn, and so on. Its origins are in South America, if we didn't know that, and it moved to Africa, Asia, and so on. There's an incredible amount of diversity within the populations, including flavors, textures, growth habits, and yields. And I say that because a lot of times people pass around cassava, but they don't know the harvest windows of those cassavas. And so you have people plant cassava and they go to pick it out in 6 months, there's nothing, or they go to pick it out in 2 years and glassy is the word, when you can't put a knife through it. And so the way that they operate down in the jungle, they know that each variety has a time. And they say this one is añero, means it's harvested in 1 year. This one's 6 months. This one's 2 years. And they know that and they plant them accordingly and they know how to move through that window of time. And if it gets to be glassy when you can't put your knife through the yucca, they ferment it, of which they do anyway. But they know how to process those yuccas that are like inedible to become edible, of which I've done successfully in Florida as well, with this device of which I'm going to talk about. So it's made into cereal. The yucca is made into cereal, espadinha, which is over there on that table, flatbread, which is beishu, beer, which is masato, which is spit fermented. I don't know if you've heard about that. It's pretty wild. I've drank my body weight in that. Because if you turn it down, you might as well just shut the door, like they're not gonna talk to you ever again. That's my friend Christian, that's Lucho's grandson with a ton of yucca cuttings in his shirt and before him. And that's my friend Clyde about the plant. So they plant theirs, at least when I saw them this day, they planted them laterally in the ground. At this point, I always plant cassava at 45s, and then some people do the direct vertical. To each their own. Everyone will swear that their way is the way, so who knows, you know? No, completely submerged,
No horizontally, but
buried,
above the ground or not?
completely under and laying down. Completely submerged, totally buried, yeah. That's a yucca, that's all yucca in the background. Like that thinner, the up below the forest trees that we were walking by. And so this is the preparation for farinha. The ground. Then from there, oh no. Why is, okay. Why is it being slow? Hold on. I think my presentation's too big. There it is. Okay. So from the peeling and harvesting point, let's see what's going on. Yeah, but the presentation is there it is. Okay. So from that point, the yucca roots are soaked until they're soft. So imagine uncooked like a potato in a giant container of water, and that thing is covered and it's left in the shade or the sun for days, 3 to 5 days, until the yucca, you can put your finger through it. At that point, it's then grated. So that's the white version of cassava, grated until it's fine like that. And then it's toasted. If she could verify me. I think it comes from flour, right? The word for flour, and it got like passed through and lost in translation to mean something else. Because that's not technically a flour, but that's what they all call it. And if I go to tell them that means flour, they don't know. You know, I don't understand.
I've always heard the word farinha used for anything that's like almost a powder, like flour.
Right,
Or
you're totally right.
wheat or anything.
Exactly.
Any
And the way
grain made into a flour.
right, and the way that they would use it is like almost like the way that we would use for like grits, you know?
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
When it's thicker. And so yeah, that's one of my favorite foods ever. When I'm doing that fasting work, this is one of the foods that we're allowed to have. And so I've gotten very used to eating this, and I'm very
Isn't tapioca from cassava?
tapioca is also from cassava. That's the starch that settles to the bottom from that grating process. They would then leave off all that water, and that white paste at the bottom, they dry.
Right.
And so they can make tapioca pearls, or they can make tapioca powder. And that's a whole nother, yucca is endless. And so I'm gonna go into a few more because.
Ahead of time, is that what removes the cyanide?
So the process for doing this was invented, or let's say given, for the reason of having poisonous yucca varieties that they would call yucca brava, or brave yucca. That's the yucca that can kill you. And so the stories that were told to me was in their culture, that yucca was banned by the government because the military that would pass through these farms to do their little like scavenger hunts or whatever they were doing with guns would be like, hey, let's stop and eat a meal, and they just would take someone's yucca and they would boil it up and die. And so enough military people died, and they're like, no more bitter yucca, and so they're only allowed to plant sweet varieties. But all these techniques and all the things that I'm showing you now were developed and practiced to make those varieties.
And then I grew up with it, you boil it once, you throw the water out, and then you boil it and finish cooking. But there are now.
There's some-
Varieties now, there's no.
There's-
negligible.
There's some now that if you boil the water, toss it and cook, you would die still. That's how much cyanogenic glycoside is in that make you stop breathing. It's a very painful death, from what I understand. So the yucca that we get and grow in Florida, what I always tell people, because you never know who brought what in and all that stuff. If you got a yucca from someone, you ask, did you eat from this? That's all, and then you say, was it sweet? And they say, yes, that's all you need to know. It's in the mouth, it's organoleptic, right? Our mouth will tell us, if it's bitter, no, not good. So my friend John Jameson, who's also spoken down here, he says that yucca is on a gradient, right? So it's not just there's bitter and sweet, it goes in a gradient. So there's types that are sweet with a little bitter, and you know what I'm saying? So it's good to know where you get them from. I have an enormous variety of yucca because it is my favorite plant, but I'm about to get planting, so I didn't break it down. What's that?
Dennis says that in Brazil, the farinha, which is kind of like I call it sand, but it's kind of like a powder that they put with their beans. And they love it,
Yeah.
but
I know you're not a fan.
well, it's not that it's not a fan, I find it to be too dry.
I understand, but that's why you have to play with it.
That's it.
Only the hardcore people eat out of the bag. You know what that does? It makes you not go to the bathroom for a week. I've been there. I've been there.
Well, then it cooks it with eggs and rice
Ooh.
and beans, the
Amazing.
sauce and all that.
You're a blessed man. Yeah.
And it's typical, well, she's from Brazil, so.
Of course. Yes, Rafael.
I call it sand.
Mandioca,
Of course, yes.
that's a different.
Mandioca is still describing yucca, just another name for it that comes from, I believe, French.
And in Brazil, we use mandioca, aipim, macaxeira, depending on the names. I'm not sure, they have the name different in each state, in each region.
Are you getting that from Italian, mandioca?
No, I know it from Paraguay and other countries.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think it's what they call yucca, because they call yucca cassava, or they call it mandioca, or they call it other names in different places. Yeah, and then there's varietals of which it goes forever. So that's in the market, a comfortable Publix-like situation, of your vendor sleeping on the floor. I just want to show you all this. I love the market there because it's so real life, and I take. No, for sure, people sleeping on the subs. So I have a 35mm film camera with a waist level viewfinder, if anyone remembers what those are, so you can shoot photos looking this way into the camera. And so I got that because I love when people rest on their food in the market. And I have a whole series on my computer of people sleeping on their fruit. And it's just so beautiful to me, not because I'm like, it makes me feel so happy, I don't know. Because they're like, it's like midday, you knew they just had their lunch, and they're like, yo, the carbon crash is coming, and they just go, whatever, no one's gonna rob me, and they just fall asleep on their dragon fruit. It's amazing, like, you just don't see that down here, you know? So this is the bechu, of which Deva was telling me that she knew about, or the other name for it is casabe. This is made with this device here, of which was gifted to me by Lucho's mother's boyfriend. This is made from balsa wood. They take a young tree of balsa wood and they weave this like serpentine weaving. And when you see the holes, you can see the light through it, right?
Yeah.
When this is soaked in water, those holes close up and it's impenetrable. This gets soaked in the yucca, of which you're about to see, the fermented mata, goes put in this, to squeeze all the water out. And they make a bone dry flour using this contraption, of which I've also used in Florida. So that's it filled, and that's like a 7 or 8 foot version of what I have. And after it's filled with this process of making the flatbread bechu, the yucca is soaked, it's then strained and squeezed out all the way. To make farinha, they squeeze out just a little bit. They'll tell me only 3 squeezes. This one is squeezed till it's bone dry. So that's me doing it in Florida with my mixed varieties, and that's them doing it in the jungle again.
Ralph, do they roll it up, which way do they roll it up when they squeeze it?
They roll it up in whatever way, and just continue in that way so that it stays tight. Just like, see how it's up in the air like that? So they have a stick going through one loop, like here. So I took a branch, put it up in my mango tree, and then you put another stick on the bottom, so it's laying like that.
Twist
And
inside.
twist until all the water comes out. And the video I want to show you on my Instagram or Facebook, I have this documented very well with the songs and everything. It's like a little promo video for them, and you can see the water just careening out of that thing.
So foul, give it 2 ends.
Exactly.
Like that.
And so they have a drink in Guyana, I can't remember what it's called there, but in here, in the Witoto people, they have it, they call it, oh, what is the name? It's escaping me. They collect the water from the fermented yucca. They'll put a bucket like where those bananas are, and they'll collect all the juice coming from this, and they cook it down. Oh my, that's what it's called. Oh my. They cook it down until it's a black paste, and they dip their fish in it. And it's super, super sour. You can imagine yuccas are sitting for 5-6 days. So they have everything for everything. It's like their hot sauce, if you will, because they'll sometimes add a hot pepper to that as well. She's got to be 80-ish. She has 37 grandkids in this picture. And I visit her. Lucha's mother, he told me no one else, she doesn't like anyone else but you. Because I go and I'm like, hey, listen, tell me about the pineapples. And I'm just like always asking her about plants. She's like, I've never met a foreigner like you in my life. I'm like, there's a lot of me back in Florida. That's them grating the yucca that she just dried out. So it comes out of this and now it's dry, and then he smashes it. That thing in his hand's probably 50-60 pounds, made from a tree called bloodwood or palisangre. It's another Brocinium, for whoever was just talking about that, cousin of mine, breadnut. And then it's sieved. And that super fine flour is at the bottom that's sieved. And then it's put onto a cast iron plate and formed into what would look like a pizza to us. And that is like their version of old school bread made from a very previously poisonous root. It's wild. And so to be able to witness this is a process that's fading quickly because of modern, you can go and spend 20 cents and get a bag full of white bread, and like everyone's like, forget about that, it's too much work, you know? So she's one of the last ones in that bubble that still does this. And every time I go there, I'm film photographing and documenting on my phone and cameras. Why? More than anything to show us and how to bring this here to Florida is so that their grandkids and great grandkids have this documented for them to remember, you know?
Did you taste it better or the commercial one?
It's totally different. It has a flavor that's totally unique. You know? Oh, from the commercial cassava, you mean? Oh, this is 10,000 times better. Because the cassava commercially is dry. It comes out like fresh, you know? One thing to show, or 3 things I learned from Florida cassava. I thought this was cool to share with everyone. So the different varieties, like I pointed out, different harvest windows, learn yours by keeping good notes and observing your harvest. So like you planted on March 1st and remember, like when you harvest 7, 8 months, 10 months, look at the harvest and see how they work, you know, and then you know for that variety how you got it. Or you get some from me and I'll tell you like this is this, and so on. And then like I said before, if they're glassy or woody roots, when you can't put your knife through it easily, that means it went too far. The plant was in the ground for too long. And or it had stressors like wind or too much water and so on. At that point, you would then peel your roots and soak them until they're soft. And then from there, what I've done in Florida is I grate that and then I dry that and you have fermented yucca flour. And then I use it to bake. And I've made a tremendous amount of things in my kitchen. My father was a baker, that's my real inspiration, to be honest. And then post-harvest, this is something really, especially for us in Homestead and South Florida in general. Some people will take harvest of cassava sticks and put them in the shade somewhere and they eventually slowly deteriorate. But what they do in the jungle, which I think is genius, is just like in this picture, they take all the long sticks from what they just harvested and they put them in the ground about 1 inch or 2 and they root. And then when they're ready in 3, 4, 5, 6 months to plant again, they take a machete, they pick it up, they cut the end up, they root it, and then they make their sticks. They make their cuttings. Does that make sense?
They keep their cuttings alive.
They never dry out. And so it's like, oh my God, how did I not think about this? It's genius. The most thing I always thought is like, we just sometimes don't have a corner of our yard to do this in, but most of us can try something like that. That's cassava I grew in Lake Worth. That's a 5x5 grid, which I recommend at least, because the more sunlight that you could get, the bigger your roots will grow. I've grown them in like partial shade and they came out like pencils. So it's definitely a solar dependent crop. And that's me with some yucca. That's me in the process of making yucca flour. I just made some cookies the other day. I'm sorry I didn't bring any. I had no idea it was gonna be like a feast in heaven. I would have totally. Next time I'll bring some stuff, I'll blow your minds. Like, let me do my thing over here. That's the yucca chips once dry. And that's a cookie made with cassava, green banana flour, and freshly ground einkorn flour. I put the butter and sugar in too hot and melted the chocolate chips. That's the truth. I didn't need to make a chocolate cookie, but it came out great. Does anyone know this one? I know some right ones that say. No, it looks like it zoomed in, it would look like that. This is chanca, which means to break. Piedra, stone. Stone breaker.
Right.
This is it's a Euphorbiaceae related to all the other ones, cassava and so on. They call it stone breaker. And this is me getting delirious in my presentation. I started putting little caricatures of guys breaking rocks. Philanthus nururi is the one. I have little seed packets of this over there, but it's commonly grown. At every nursery in Florida, you can find this growing in pots. And the guy goes, oh, I hate this plant. I'm like, you ever have kidney stones? Like all the time. I'm like, you should probably make a tea of that, you know? Let's see. Whoa. Not too far.
Which is the other Moraceae you talked about?
Persimium rubescens is palisandre or bloodwood.
It's a brassica?
Yeah, man, the one of the best. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry if I touch down that tree. Does anyone know this one? Yay, I'm in Homestead because no one knows that tree. There's a little baby. This is the one we have here. So I've noticed, and it's never been described in literature, and to no one I know, there are varieties of this. Of course there are. The ones down here, correct me if I'm wrong, here have blue fruits, correct? When they're open. Has anyone seen? Inside the meat. Anyone? Okay.
It oxidizes though very quickly.
No, but that's something else. I know what you're saying. But I've seen them freshly open blue, and then the Amazon, even later on, they're pink. Like what color is that? Oh, it's good. Like off pink, like darker pink. So I think I have a picture of one here. Let's see. So that's the one. Is that the one here? That's Fairchild, yeah. So that one, I've never seen one in the jungle flower at the base. And so no one, there's only Charybdis guinensis, that's the only ones I've ever seen of this being described in science. But there has to be subspecies or whatever they might be called. Because in the Amazon, they flower way up high. Maybe it's because of shade, maybe it's got full sun, I don't know. But this is prolific. If you haven't seen that one at Fairchild.
That was the only one that I know that does that level degree.
Right, it's interesting, right? So that's the one on the left, zoomed out. You can see my shot at the base, and then that one on the right is at the Deerfield Botanical, flowering higher. That looks like the other variety. Super interesting. So that tree, that's the fruits. This is why they call it cannonball, because it can kill you and it can hit your head.
And we saw those at King Turner, we broke them over.
Really? In the Amazon, this tree is called ayauma, which means that which can kill the head. Understandably, but in their doctrine of signature, seeing of something that can like literally like the cartoons like crack your head, they also see it as a tree that can break someone out of circular thinking and allow them to come more into the feeling states, the heart. And so they prescribe this to people that are very heady and like locked in the head, a lot of thinking, which is very much common in our world, all of us. And so the other thing they use it for going deeper is for heart issues and addiction. I've witnessed personally people that were working with hard drugs. They were given this tree, the fruit of this tree, in juice with tobacco, which is very dangerous, and I don't recommend anyone just to do. And it causes and elicits an extreme purging experience. I'm talking like very strong purgative. But what comes out of that person is all the things that made them want to use drugs to begin with, right? And so they do that purging with this plant in a dieta, fasting, with certain restrictions. And they're watched very carefully. But I've known of several people that have had success with tobacco and this fruit mixed together. The other thing they'll use it for, and I was experimenting with this in Florida from a gentleman in West Palm with his tree, is the fruit is used for the skin. So it was told to me that a long time ago when leprosy was making its way through that area of the Amazon, they would do baths with the fruit and it would cure the wounds of leprosy, eating the skin away. This tree, and I can go on and on, this tree is unbelievably powerful. And I always tell people, if it calls the attention of the senses, whether it's the eyes and especially the nose, if you ever smell this fruit, you can smell this fruit from a mile away. And so that means something, you know, the organism, we're attracted to that or repulsed, but it still means that there's some medicine in there. Let's see. That's me hugging the tree on the bottom. This is the tallest tree on Lucha's land and in that area of the Amazon. This is Lupuna, and you can see my friend Edward and his family on the lower left. It's really hard to capture the girth and width of this tree. Lucho thinks it's around 500 years old. And so it's gotta be at least 120 feet tall. That's my friends in January last month. So it's called Lupuna there. The other name, that's the other name I was thinking about, is K-pop. That's the other name they'll sometimes call it. It's a keystone species. I've read before that it's responsible for stewarding relationship between flora and fauna of 500 different species. Imagine your house covering 500 different friends, you know, it's a lot. So these trees are really important. And that medicine that comes from the bark of this, my teacher will cook the bark of this in certain preparations for protection. And their doctrine of signatures, if anyone, I'm using that phrase a lot, doctrine of signatures means in folk herbalism, if something looks like a kidney, it's probably good for the kidneys. So in that same line of thinking, if the tree is that big and storms aren't taking it down, then you're gonna be good. You're not gonna go down. You're gonna stay up. And so they give that tree to people to build physical and spiritual energetic strength and so on. And this is a K-pop or a Seba in West Palm. And you can see how, you really can't see how big this is, but there's a really beautiful write-up there about how this tree is like what they would call the axis mundi tree, or like the central tree of a cosmology of people across all the tropics. That's Michi in front of it. It's massive. I can't even tell you how big this thing is. So that's a Seba, that's the K-pop. I have this section, there's only one tree in this, because I was like, I can't make this information any longer. And I could, but I only put one tree in this. So then I started telling you like 10 days ago when I cut myself with a machete. I was cutting plants like this, and I'm pretty proficient with machete after this many years, but we all make mistakes. And I was very tired. I should not have been swinging a machete at this point. I was cutting back grasses to plant those aguaje palms in the Amazon. And I had grasses in my hands like this, and I lowered my hands, and I full strength, zoom, like this, to this thumb, and just cut to the tendon, to the bone.
Is that the second cut or the same one?
This is the first one. This is on the first story. It's only one story, but I'm gonna tell you. So I'm holding the skin together. I went like this and saw the tendon go whoop whoop. Like, this is not good. So I put my hand up like this, and I walked to my teacher, and I told him he's the chillest human being on the planet. He's like, what happened? I'm like, well, I'm bleeding profusely. And he's like, Copaiba. And so I'm like, really? Just Copaiba? Which is in the Fabaceae family, right? That's this tree, and it has all this scientific stuff about it. And I was like, I don't even care about what they're gonna tell me in the studies, because I'm gonna tell you what happened to me, which is way better. That's the cut. Nice iPhone photo there for you. That's the first day. So this was, oh, the dates are gone weird. Interesting. I don't know where they are on my screen, but yeah, it could be. It says, how do I do that? Let's see. Yeah, I know. I was lucky. Looks fake. Maybe it's down. No, it's not there. I don't know where it is. Weird. I could erase somehow. It's all good. So this is the same day. This is, let's say, September 10th or whatever it is.
You just put it on.
That's okay.
Sometimes it
Just
disappears.
disappears. Yeah, it's okay. This was this was 2 days later, so you can't really see where it was, which is kind of amazing. That's just Copaiba, and I disinfected with Echinacea golden seal just as a precaution. And then this is 2 days after that, and this is 10 days. Incredible. I went all the way. You know, I should have been infected and had my thumb fall off. That was, think about it, you're in like Amazon, like armpit of the universe. Like it's just bacteria and fungi all around you, you know? I should have been infected to the bone easily. And I was a little freaked out, I'm not gonna lie. But Lucho is like calm centered, like, you're fine. I'm like, all right. So that was example one. Example two,
Machete must have been sharp and nice.
it was
clean cut.
super sharp.
Nice clean cut.
Oh, super clean. In last month, was it? Yeah, last month I was cutting a cow open for my friends, and I was just like talking, I'm like, yeah, whoop, and it just thinking my finger was a cow. I'm not sure, but I just sliced clean.
I got very good
That's how, yeah, exactly. That's how I can't get fingerprinted. So that was the 14th, and then this is the next day. It's an incredible resin. So it comes out sticky, and like 1 or 2 drops of that little bottle is enough to completely disinfect and begin healing the skin. It's used universally down there. They all know about Copaiba. So that tree is amazing. And then a really quick little section is trees I brought in my luggage to Iquitos. This is jackfruit, of which my friend sent me seeds of overnight from Pine Island. That's planted at my friend's place. My whole thing is many people are taking from these regions for right reason. They have a lot of amazing things going on down there. And at one point in my journey, I was like, Lucho, what do you want from me? And he's like, fruit trees. I'm like, of course. That's what everyone else wants. I'm like, I'm gonna start bringing you stuff. And so I've begun this little back and forth with him. That's jackfruit planted in 2018. And for some reason, it's cool to see, like, you plant them in different areas and they do different things. This is the same year I planted this tree and this tree. And that tree's fruited every year since. This is another region, my friend Gabicho and his family. And so they're the first people to fruit, all of Iquitos to fruit jackfruit, which is a pretty amazing thing. I was like, I keep telling them you gotta plant the seeds out and share it out. And so they're on that process right now. That's the Thai ever-bearing dwarf mulberry, which is doing prolifically down there. These are all non-invasive, like, just so you all know, if anyone's like, oh my God, Kim's doing this, like, I make sure pretty prolifically, like, they're not gonna run. And it's fruiting really, really well on the left, and that's Sarah in front of her first cutting behind her house in the city. That is, what's that mango called, Zane?
Oh, the species?
Yeah. Castoria. That's Castoria on the left, and the reason why I brought Castoria there is because down there, they'll have mango trees this stage, 50, 60, 70 years old, never fruit. Why? They're in perpetual summer. And so they'll get a week of cold and it will start to flower and everyone's like, yeah! And then all the flowers drop off because the heat comes back. And so I was like, this is an issue. And so I thought potentially with a tree that needs more water and has more affinity to like tropical rainforest, it might do better there. And that's a Mamea americana on the right, which actually is native to North and South America, but does not exist in Iquitos to my knowledge. And that's it. So I appreciate you all coming through. Maybe I'll speak a little about what I had to do.
Thank you, Matt. Don't forget that Rob had plans.
Yeah, I have to
And products here.
While there's a little time, I'll talk about them because there's a lot to say. And I know everyone, the rest is gonna ask about questions.
Yeah. you could, play along.
This is that basil, that's native to South Florida. This tree is already been accounted for by my dear friends in the back, but I have one to house. This is Kratom or Kratom, Mitrogenia speciosa. It's a coffee relative. It's got a lot of negative publicity right now, and it may become one day illegal in Florida, which is the reason, in my opinion, to plant it heavily. So it's a tree that is used to eradicate pain. The sun is out. The leaves are used as a pain reducer. It binds to the same receptors as opiates. So they use it actually to help people get off the opiates.
What was the name again?
Kratom. Kratom. K-R-A-T-O-M.
Oh.
That's that common name. And so it's in the coffee family. It grows very well here. And people traditionally in Southeast Asia will take one leaf of this, put a little sugar in it, because it is bitter. And they chew it and put it in the foot of the mouth and they swallow it down. And it kind of feels like I don't have any pain medicine, but when I have taken pain medicine, it does feel like a little bit of a mild pain reliever with the coffee.
What's that? I was looking at the DEA website, there's a lot of information about it.
It does feel like a drowsy thing, and I think it's dosage dependent, just like some of the other plants that are like that. I'm not a big painkiller guy when it comes to pills. But if I needed painkiller, which I did when I was in the hospital position, I was on morphine, Dilaudid, Percocet, I was on everything. I had a kick line of morphine, which then years later, I was like, I need to learn about plants that are for pain. So I learned about that, but more than that, I will say that I use way more than Chicom, instrumental dogwood, which I have trees of, which is native to South Florida, and particularly northern, like the Keys and northern to cinnamon. Oh, and so I make medicines with some of these plants. The Topaibas, that oil from the finger that I showed with machete wounds. This is a blend. All of these have CBD in them that my friend grew in Mexico organically. This is CBD with Jamaican dogwood for pain. It's called Remember Relief. Remember Calm is an anxiolytic blend for anxiety, nervous system, calming and soothing. So let's drop those. All you can take in 2 to 3 drops. And it's really, really good for resting. So when people have like restless mind at night, you take 3 or 4 drops, or sometimes you do a 4-dropper full, and all they do is wake up the next day and go, thank you. Like, well, it's one of those plants that really work.
Any of those things.
No, I don't do that. But this still actually has a fence with a little swing on it, you're one of the drop, all of these are set in alcohol to preserve the plants, these are tinctures, they're not oils, just so you understand. And then I have, this is for women, for people that would be using more, not more menopause, more so for menstrual work. For wild yam crank work, so this is for like menstruation pain. And then this is pure CBD oil set in jojoba oil. And this is ginger with honey, very good for digestion, for those that don't want to do ginger tea. And then I have 2 seed packets, one is of that basil here, and one is of the stonebreaker. And I know people will be like, I can't believe you're selling packets of seeds of weeds, but this is so for you to know exactly of what's in your pocket. Some people will be like, there's a lot of lookalikes when it comes to the chunky together.
What was the first one, the little one?
This is the copaiba, copaiba, C-O-P,
Oh, that was for
for
the.
the cut, yeah.
What is it, what
I
kind
can
of
spell
pain?
it.
The second one you said was for pain.
For nerve pain, muscle pain. If you look up on your phone, Jamaican dogwood pain relief, you'll see a ton of signs. Topic, yeah, right on the wound, yeah. Happens when you're getting.
What's the dosage?
Try it, if you wanna try it, try a drop first, like literally, like 1 drop, not a drop. It's strong.
It's not so good.
No, it doesn't matter how you put it on the side. Yeah, 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, you'll feel, even right now, you'll feel like, oh wow, this works. If you take enough, you'll be like, I need to go do it again.
Can I pass this around to you?
Okay, thank
Okay,
you, yes,
so very good.
yeah,
Thank you, Lieutenant, for keeping
thank you so
us
much.
going and helping with everything.